All right, you guys are currently live.
Okay, thank you. So Kate, if you can bring up the agenda, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
And Bill, do you usually do the roll call first and then the pledge, or what's the order? You're on mute.
Pledge.
You do the pledge first and the roll call.
Okay. So, well, we do that then. So welcome everyone to the Dewey Beach Budget and Finance Committee. We'll get started now. We are live streaming. It's also being recorded, I believe, so people can see it at a later date. So the first order of business is to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So let us start that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of
United
the United States of America,
To the
republic
which stands
one
one
nation,
nation under
under
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
and justice
liberty
for all.
and justice for all.
For all.
Thank you all.
All right.
All right, so I'm Dan Hirschfeld. I am the newly appointed chair for the committee. So I will officially call this meeting to order. So if we can note the date and time, that would be great. And the first thing I'd like to do is do a roll call of the participants on today's call, but also the members of the Budget and Finance Committee. So let me start with that, with the members. So Zeke, as I look at my gallery here, you are first on the top left. So do you want to go ahead and identify yourself and where you have a home in Dewey?
Zeke Pergoski, 16C Bellevue Street here in beautiful Dewey Beach, sunny today. Who knows what tomorrow? And former and current member.
Great, thank you. Lynn, I think you're the next member on my list.
Yeah, Lynn Winkler. I'm on Bayside, New Orleans Street. And I'm glad to be back on the committee. So maybe we can get some interesting things done here.
Great, thank you. John?
John Gephardt. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, have a house with my brothers on Dickinson Avenue. I attended one meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee in the past, and now that we are reformulated and working with Dan, I look forward to helping the town of Dewey Beach bring in some revenue.
Great, thank you. And Joe?
Joe Kinley, former member of the Budget and Finance Committee several years, former Dewey Beach property owner, non-voting member of the committee.
Right, and I asked Joe to stay on the committee because of his experience, but as a non-property owner or lessee in Dewey, he will not be able to vote. So thank you, Joe, for volunteering as well. I'm Dan Hirschfeld. I have been a property owner in Dewey for 12 years on Chesapeake Street. It is a secondary home for us. We live in Baltimore as well. So from the town of Dewey, Bill, I think you're next, or excuse me, Sheena, actually, as I look at this, sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I was actually working. Sorry about that.
Please announce yourself. Just identify yourself. That's all I was doing.
Sheena, I'm here to handle anything accounting and HR and help y'all out.
Great. Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, Bill Zolper, town manager.
Great. And Kate, I think you're our moderator today.
Yeah, Kate Benazak, admin supervisor, here to just run the tech for the meeting.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you all in advance. Oh, Paul, I'm sorry. Sorry, Paul.
Yep, and Paul Bauer, present.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining. And again, thanks for those who are volunteering to be on the committee. I appreciate it. As I said, this is my first time on the committee. So I welcome all input and feedback into the operations and recommendations of the committee. We have the agenda shown up here for everyone to see as well. So the first thing that I need is a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda.
I move to approve the adoption of the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there we go. So we're going to proceed with the agenda. The first topic on the agenda is to approve, typically, the agenda would include the approval of the draft minutes from the last meeting. We are in the process of getting the minutes of the last meeting. Because we are a committee, there is not official minutes kept by the town itself, so it will come upon the committee members to be able to draft minutes, and then we'll provide them to the town, and they'll be posted as we go forward. Because of that, we don't have minutes to approve at this time. We'll look for the previous meetings. I believe it was in 2021. I don't believe we had any in 2022. So we'll hunt those down, and then we'll be able to present those next time we have them.
Hey, Dan, if I can interject here, so what we want to do is have someone be the secretary for the committee.
That would be great. Do we have any volunteers? No volunteers? Well, I'll add it to my other duties as assigned, so I'll take that on as well, and I'll take some notes here. All right, Sheena, you are up. If you wouldn't mind reviewing the September results, I believe, for the latest that have been published. Is that correct?
They are. Unfortunately, I don't have October quite finished. But I can give you a few things that are positive, even more positive now than they were a month ago. Accommodations tax, we have met budget for the year. Building permits has met budget for the year. Hotel tax and transfer were, we just have to see. But those two items having met budget already give confidence that we're going to be okay for the rest of the year. One of the things that we've had to change this year and in our accounting method, and it'll be reflected in the way I do the budget this next year, is when things were paid out of set-aside funds or grants, they were not hitting the P&L. So they were not being expensed properly. So you will see where no matter where they're paid from, you have to show them as an expense. So there's going to be certain items on the budget, the 2023 budget, that are going to be cattywampus and look like we've overspent. But the revenue is offset in another aspect of the of our accounting in the revenue. Like there was a police vehicle purchased. So the police equipment purchase is very large where we hadn't budgeted anything, but that money came in grants. So we're not out anything.
So you'll show on the statements the grant as revenue and then the expense. So it's a new revenue item as well as a new expense item on the financials.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And when I start working on the budget later this month, that's one of the things I'm going to have to change. So some of our expenses look higher than budgeted, where they are higher than budgeted, but they are not. We're not at a loss because we've had to bring our accounting more in line with how it's supposed to be. But basically, we're doing good.
As a former commissioner, when we used to do the budget before, we used to have grants and things like that already listed in there. What made those disappear from the budget and then have to be reappear and redo everything? It's like almost like we're reinventing the wheel.
The grants were still there. It's just the expenses were not shown.
Okay.
And that the auditors have been working with me on making sure that we properly account for everything so that we're giving the town a more accurate look throughout the year.
Okay.
So Dan, all the changes that Chia just went through, those were all recommendations by our audit firm when they looked at the way we were doing our budget. Sheena then would take what the audit firm suggested to us, discuss it with myself, discuss it also with others, and then we would go ahead and make those changes. We're just not making those changes on our own. Sheena is researching this and working with our auditors to make these changes and correct the way we've been doing business.
That makes sense. And we might want to highlight any of those items then that are new expense items so that people can understand, that is a sort of a new category that we're now reflecting in the financials.
Yes, so that is being done on the information that I give to the town manager. And if any of the commissioners have questions, it is fully disclosed to anybody and everybody.
Got it. Any concerns as you go through the financials? I know a couple, you mentioned the revenue items were already at budget for the year, which is great news. Any concerns on any of the expense side that we should be aware of or that you're worried about, you or Bill?
The only thing is with the continued national financial situation, the continued rise in the gas prices, the continued rise in all prices, it's, where it's at a point where we can't be sure as to where certain things are going to go. I do believe we're pretty safe on everything because I did over predict on some of the expenses being just, cautious. But I'm just.
Are you worried?
next year is
Sorry to
gonna
interrupt
be very
you.
cautious.
Are you more worried about the expense or the inflationary impact perhaps on the revenue? So you may have less transfer tax, you may have less accommodation tax because people aren't visiting. So it's both the revenues and the expenses, because our gas that we pay for is going to go up as well.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else that we should be aware of?
No,
So Dan?
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, so, given the current rate of inflation, we will be looking at, a cost of living increase for all our employees, including our police officers. I've had Sheena looking at our numbers, what we can afford, what we can't afford, based on the current rate of inflation, trying to take care of our employees. Because out of everything that we have here in the town, they are our most important resource. So we are working on that, and we will have those numbers sometime probably before December. So we have a good idea on where we want to be and what we will ask Budget and Finance Committee and also our commissioners at some point in next year's budget, so we can give those folks that cost of living increase.
When would this go effect, Bill? April?
Yes.
For the new budget? Yeah.
Yes.
And what do we do this year, just so that I have that in my notes? What kind of increase do we do?
So we did an increase across the whole board. It was actually, what we did was we looked at all the towns on the coast and we came up with trying to get to what their average was. So then we looked at what the average pay was, for example, what Sheena's doing as a finance person for the town, what I'm doing as a town manager, what a corporal makes with the police departments. And then we went to 90% of what that average for each one of those positions, because we couldn't afford to go up to the 100%, if that makes sense. So we went to 90%. And that was huge for us, Dan. We brought our police officers up from basically 43 to 44,000 coming out of the academy up to 53,000. That was a huge jump. And for us to be competitive and get good folks in important jobs like law enforcement, we have to pay them a decent salary. So we did that across the board, but we really did, I think our largest increase was for our law enforcement here.
Got it. That's great. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Anything else, Sheena, to add?
No, sir.
Okay. And then we'll try to schedule the meetings in the future so that we have the most current financials. Just remind me when you complete the financials each month.
This month, the meeting is,
On the 18th.
right, so I would have them on Veterans Day this month. So 1 week prior to the meetings.
So Dan, the meetings are always the third Friday of the month unless the mayor and the commissioners change it. We always have the financials. Sheena has to have them done 7 days prior so we can get them posted.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? All right. So Bill, you had mentioned something Sheena put together, which is great work, Sheena. So thank you for doing this. This was posted to the website. It is a comparison of the town of Dewey Beach with the city of Lewis, the city of Rehoboth Beach, town of Bethany Beach, town of South Bethany, and Fenwick Island, and includes basically all the revenue categories from business licenses to rental licenses, building permits, different other fees, administrative fees, events, and so forth, and taxes. So this was made available to the public and to the committee for the committee to review. Not sure whether people were in a position yet to opine on these or have any questions or comments on these or make any recommendations, but I'll open up the floor to see if there are any comments with regard to what Sheena put together.
A couple things came to mind as I reviewed them, Dan and everyone. While and this was fabulous work, Sheena, doing the comparisons, and not very easy, I'm sure. While they're listed with the fees and in percentages and things, our focus should be on the fees that generate significant revenue. And not really to worry about the fees that are nickeling and diming people or businesses. So one thought that I had for our committee to think about was perhaps where possible, what kind of resulting revenue came from these fees, these percentages, so that we can really see where there are significant opportunities for us for revenue. The second thing that came to mind was basically if we could expand our comparisons perhaps to 3 towns or at least one in New Jersey. The ones that come to mind that are analogous are Cape May, Stone Harbor, and Avalon. It'd be very interesting to see where they generate their income through fees and taxes and things like that. The Dewey Beach or the Delaware shores are great, but it might be helpful to just look a little bit beyond at, what a typical New Jersey town does that we may not know about and we might think is fabulous. The 2 more things. The next 2 aren't popular, but I think as members of the committee here would do the budget and finance, our fiduciary duty is to the town of Dewey Beach. And that certainly also applies to the commissioners, which often means that, acting with this fiduciary duties is not always going to be popular. But there are 2 things that kind of come to mind. First, without question, our town's biggest industry is bars. And I also would hesitate. I guess, although I have not looked at the budget clearly, and this is my second meeting on the committee, but I guess these bars also generate a large expense for the town in terms of policing the bars. And with all that, their contribution to Dewey Beach on the revenue side through fees and taxes, at least from my novice eyes of what I've seen thus far, looks minimal, absolutely minimal. I think that is one area that I really think we're going to have to examine as a committee and ultimately as a commission. And now for the least popular of all, when we're looking at all these fees and revenue sources, there is one elephant in the room, and that would provide significant revenue, and that's one that Lewis, Bethany, and Fenwick have already have in place. I bet you if you look at New Jersey, I bet you Cape May has it, Stone Harbor, Avalon, and that is moving to a property tax. Not going to be popular for it doesn't make me popular right now. Not going to be popular for our Budget and Finance Committee if we decide it's appropriate to recommend to the commissioners. And certainly the commissioners, it won't be popular for them either. But if we hold true to a fiduciary duty to the town and work to maximize revenue, and in doing so, we don't have to charge as many nickel and dime fees that seem to be on our books, I think we can get to a really great place.
Any comments on that?
I'll hold off to my committee comments.
Hey, Bill or Sheena, could you just order of magnitude without exact dollars? John's question of revenue from the bars and restaurants, roughly what kind of revenue is that? Is it a fair question to ask?
That would, basically, it's just the business licenses. I can get that information. It'll take me a couple minutes to try to pull that. But where's that spreadsheet? As far as eateries in the town, which that includes the bars, we're averaging about 27 a year, and so there's only about just the basic 382 a year business license plus, not counting their seatage. We're looking at only about 10 grand that I'm looking at now. Bear with me. I don't deal with, the everyday of the licensing and all. I would have to, get in that database and pull that, but they are, I don't believe it's very much.
So Dan, Sheena's correct. It's not very much, but you have to look at what comes off of that sometimes is our parking revenue, right? People come into town, they have to pay to park for the most part. They have to pay to go to the beach. So our parking revenue is one of our big, sources of revenue. And then the transfer tax, which over the last couple of years has been enormous, but with the, down economy right now, that transfer tax could really fall next year. And then, we have to look at other ways to make up for that. And that's what I'm hoping that these sheets that Sheena and Laura put together and did a great job on will give you some perspective of what the other towns are actually charging for accommodations and hotel and some of the other things they do, permits, and let you know where we are. Because at the end of the day, as the last committee member said, there is no property tax in Dewey. So, I mean, we have to make up for it in other ways. And I'm hoping that this committee can look at possible other ways that we can make up for it and, you know, come up with the best way to raise revenue so we can purchase equipment and hire people to keep the town safe and clean.
Dan,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Dan, Sheena, may I ask you a question?
Go right ahead, sir.
Sheena, when you quoted the figure 27, would you comment on that 27?
I asked Kate to pull me some numbers for the past 3 years as far as to how many business licenses. And that's for 22, 21, and 20. And I just did the average over the 3 years was 27 eateries. Now, that fluctuates, you know, has and will, that includes like Baked, which is only open during the season. It includes Franco's and a couple of the other small ones you don't think about, you know, as well as the larger, you know, like Woody's and Starboard. So
Okay.
that's where I was going off of, sir.
Okay, 27 businesses that we
Yes,
received the business license from.
for that are classified as eateries.
Okay. We don't break that down by eateries and bars.
Not off of the numbers that Kate gave me. I asked her at 2 o'clock to pull those numbers for me, and she got me, you know, just raw numbers real quick.
So the only so-called,
Answer that.
if you wanted to separate bars and restaurants, because they're all basically restaurants with bars in them, with the exception of the Bottle and Cork, which has a tavern's license.
Thank you, Bill. The property tax question has been raised in my experience on this exact committee numerous times, and the concerns that were expressed already today were expressed each and every time about property tax. And Dan, that's the only comment I have.
Yeah.
Paul, did
If I
you
can
have
add,
something?
yeah, can I add to that? So the way when the town was originally formed, in order to implement a tax, we would have to go to a referendum, meaning that we need to go to the public and we just can't implement it. So we'd have to come up with something, make the case, and have the voters vote it up and down. I mean, the residents and property owners get to vote that up and down. And it's hard, I don't know, many of you guys are from Maryland. It's a little different in Delaware. Like we've always voted the school tax every year. And, anytime you get the notice that, hey, I want to raise your taxes, your initial reaction is always like, what for? What am I getting for? What are you going to do for me that you're not doing today? So we're going to have to, if we want to go down that route, then we need to be able to form a good case. So, would the case be now we're going to eliminate the nickel dime fees? Like, well, which nickel dime fees are we getting rid of? Because I think in the past, we've really geared most of our expenses or, the income towards a visitor coming here, not a resident that lives here. However, a visitor doesn't get the vote. It's the person that you're going to put the tax on gets the vote on it, and the visitor now gets a reduction of it. So, that's a hard, I mean, it's, if that gets pushed forward, I mean, we can look at doing a referendum on it. But this is a discussion item at this point. So that's why I'm just weighing in on it, that, the process that would have to occur there. The second thing there is, we can't tax food and alcohol in the state of Delaware.
No.
So the only thing you can do is raise your business license fee. And what do you base that on? Based on occupancy? Do you base it on things? So in Sheena, and when you're looking up the differentiations there, to take a look at what do we charge? What's a business license cost here in Dewey Beach, and what does it cost in Rehoboth, for example, for the same size place? So let's just say the Starboard and the Purple Parrot are same size, same occupancy. What's the difference in in business license fees. And I think that would be a fair analysis there. But what's worked for us for 40 years here is, if we didn't have the businesses, would we still have the tourism that we have? So you don't want to make it difficult that goes away. And all of a sudden we don't have the draw that we have today. What would we replace it with? These are all considerations I think we need to just keep in the back of our mind of where do we go with it? Yeah. There's only so much you can charge for business license. If you're paying 10 times more here in Dewey than you are in Rehoboth, that's an honest gripe. And then going down this path before, that was always the fair share discussion. Zeke, that's probably near and dear to your heart. You've heard that a few hundred times. But is a person that rents their house a business as well? We charge them a business license based on their occupancy as well. So does that count as business revenue or does that count as residential revenue? And we have approximately 700 people that rent their houses out. So those 700 are technically businesses, right? And then we have eateries and we have one bar. So I think that's the breakdown of it. But it's what you classify as, it's how you always frame it's like, well, yeah, that person over there doesn't pay enough and this one pays too much. But I think if we want to use the term business, I think we need to include all businesses. And that includes, somebody that sells rafts and surfboards, et cetera. So, those are all businesses that we can lump into a business
Paul, today
expense.
they're not classified as businesses today. Is that correct?
No, they are
If someone-
classified as businesses.
If somebody rents their house today, they have to pay as a
It's a
business license?
yes.
Okay, okay.
They pay a rental license based on the number of rooms. The basic is $142, which I think is up to 2 bedrooms.
Three,
3.
2 plus 1 and 8 people or something like that.
Right.
And then it's $11 additional per room.
And then there's also the tax that basically goes to the tenant actually ends up paying it of 3% for that rental.
Yep,
So
and
in
that's
a
another
sense-
thing that we can look at from a revenue stream. If how does that compare to other towns? We're half of what all the other towns are on rental income. And we've had it there for years. And once again, would have to go to a referendum to raise it.
Right.
And there's still discussion now of the state taking that over and we would lose anything that we don't already have.
And I don't know if everybody knows, and Bill, if you're the right person, Paul, rather, you're the right person to talk about it. I believe we purchased software to be able to make sure those that are renting that we're able to make sure that we are collecting the fees from them. And we found compliance, I guess, historically was low. And so the revenues are going to be higher because of that.
Yeah, the commissioners approved approximately $12,000 for us to join a program where they actually look across the internet. Kate's done a great job with this program, and we've brought a lot of people into compliance, and it's definitely going to pay for itself this year. And we think we'll see improvements in next year's budget because of it.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I think it was a good $12,000 spent. So sorry, I just wanted to chime in and offer some perspective on some of these discussions. They're all great ideas. So,
Yeah.
if we look at it, we just have to figure out what happens next if we say, yeah, let's do, this is a great idea. Let's implement it. How does that happen?
Right.
Hey, Paul, just stay there for a minute. So on a referendum, is there a time of year referendums happen, or can we have a referendum anytime?
You could have it anytime. We typically, in past years when we've had a referendum, we always tied it to the election day because, people were already mailing them stuff, and, you can always bring that referendum vote in at that time. That's when everybody is used to coming here, which is the third week in September. Third Saturday in September, rather.
Got it. And then Sheena, John's question about adding to your comparison spreadsheet, Cape May, Stone Harbor, and Avalon, is that doable?
I want to give credit where credit is due. All I did was pull the stuff down from the internet. Laura Steiner, our administrative assistant, front office guru, put it all together. I'm sure that she or I can pull information from the web. Most towns list all their stuff. And I'm sure I can maybe get her, with some homemade cookies or something, get her to help me on this project too.
Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind having that as a follow-up, that would be great.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Sheena, not to make more work for you though, but those towns in Jersey have massive property taxes. It's one of the highest tax states in the country. So if their fees are lower on some things, it's because something else is higher.
Right.
When people
Right.
came here after
I don't think
Hurricane
we could pass
Sandy,
the
they realized
20,000 per house tax for everybody down here. That would be a tough referendum to sell.
yeah, when people came here after Hurricane Sandy and they saw prices of property taxes and things like that, they were paying $20,000+ a year, and they see zero here, $200 or $2,500 in Rehoboth. They're like kid in a candy store, and they don't care about a dentist.
Right,
Same
can you
with me
imagine?
when I bought my house in Maryland? For the record.
Yeah, can you imagine sitting at home and we send you a thing for a referendum? Yeah, we want to charge you $20,000 a year now on a property tax. That might,
We should do it right
we're
after
gonna have to
I
make a
resign.
heck of a case to make that happen.
Right after I resigned from the committee though, Paul. Okay? Don't sit it while I'm on the committee.
Although it
Any
would be
other-
nice. It would be nice.
Yeah. So, John, just philosophically, my opinion, I agree with you that, we should be focused on things that drive the most revenue. Some of these things, which are small ticket items, I honestly don't know how much control Bill has on those items without our input or having to go to the commission. But, some of these smaller items are not going to move the budget one way or another.
Right.
And, I defer to Bill and his team for that. That'd be what my comment would be.
I just want to say that so far this year, we brought in over $50,000 in dog licenses fees. Dog
Really?
permit fees.
Fabulous.
That, we had only budgeted for like 25, so that's.
Do you think
rough.
that's because we're doing more of I think we had the Greyhounds, or we had a couple of different festivals or whatever they are with the dogs? Is that what's
The
driving that?
dog weekends, yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
I
reason
think
itself
the town
is,
manager should weigh in on this one. He did a fabulous job with dog ambassadors on the beach.
yeah, so we do have dog ambassador on the beach, and it's about education first, enforcement second. We want people to come here with their dogs and be able to enjoy themselves. But at the same time, the dogs are on the beach. We need to have the beach clean. We have to pay for the bags. We have to remind people to clean up after their dogs. So to do that, you have to hire somebody to do it. And we've had a very good group of people as our dog ambassadors. Right now, we have a part-time person that's going to work through the winter as long as the weather holds. And it's really paid off. When we have our golden doodles in town, when we have our greyhounds in town, we have these groups. I try to reach out to them, coordinate with them, explain to them why the dog licenses, whether they buy a 3-day, a 5-day, a week-long, or limited edition forever dog license, why that's important that they fund it. Because if we get a lot of complaints about the beach not being clean, eventually there will be no more dogs on the beach. So we want to keep the beach clean, and to do that, we have to sell these dog licenses.
Hey, Dan?
Yes.
Dan? Lynn Winkler. Two things that talk about elephants sitting in that meeting. We've discussed before about Rehoboth by the Sea, just increasing their leases incredibly. I mean, the property I know of went from $600 a year to $18,000 a year. And we had asked a question before on the committee the last time, the old committee, whether there was any way we could make some money off of that. Most of the fees, they pass right through to whoever the lessee is. So they're making a lot of money basically using our services and facilities, although they don't use a lot themselves. And there's a lot of money flowing there. So I thought that was something we should at least look into.
On the ground rents, right? You're referring to the ground rents in particular?
The leases, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Lynn, my ground rent at 15 Jersey Street went from $850 a year to $18,000 a year. And,
Exactly. Well, I was on Jersey too, and that's why I sold. It was going from 600 to 18,000 with
Yeah.
with incremental changes every year.
Yeah,
And so I moved further down to New Orleans, and it's fee simple, so that's fine. I don't have a ground lease, but there's a lot of money flowing there, and I don't know whether we could get a hold of any of that. And I've asked for some type of legal status of that, but I don't think we've ever gotten that far to find out whether we could do anything there. Number two, the second thing is, I don't know, I guess I'm sure Bill knows it, but the marinas, there's only really 2 marinas in Dewey now. And Bill, are they both owned by the same people now?
No, one is Blue Water, which bought Pier Point at the end of Rodney Street, which the town hall sits on. And the other one is the Galbraith family. They actually, I believe, own or lease that. I don't know if
Okay.
Commissioner Bauer knows.
So here's the point. I keep a boat in Pier Point, or whatever it's going to be called now. They're reducing services. They pretty much raised the for my slip, which is pretty small, from 1,500 to 2,500. So they went up 1,000 a season. I don't know whether there's any way for us to claw back a little bit of the slip money of the boat. There's boats coming in and out of Dewey going into those slips. Now, I don't know whether everybody in Dewey has those boats.
Yeah, the thing is, once you get past the bulkhead down to your boat and further down where my family keeps their boat, it's all owned by DENREC, actually. The enforcement and and all the regulations at that point. So up to the bulkhead is the town of Dewey Beach. Once you're on the other side of the bulkhead, it falls into DENREC.
Well, is the operator a Dewey Beach business?
Yeah, sure they are.
Okay. So there's no way we could get, how many boats they got, charge them. I understand the DENREC problem. We had several questions over the summer about people in the water and not in the water. Okay, that was just the 2 points. So the one thing was Rehoboth by the Sea, the leases. Is there any? I didn't see anything on these spreadsheets about, and I don't think there's probably another town along the coast that has that same situation. And I didn't know about the marinas.
Again, just to clarify, it's really not Rehoboth by the Sea. It's really anybody who's paying a ground rent. And I guess one of the questions is that even if you are the landlord, is that a business, right? Should they be then at least paying the business license on that?
I would hope they're paying something. I mean, their offices in Dewey Beach, right?
Business license.
They're paying a business license as a landlord? Okay.
Bill, can I ask?
Do we have a rental tax on that? Is that the, could we treat that like an accommodations tax, I guess?
With the owners already pay. Now what they've done, the way the lease is set up is whoever the lessee is responsible for all taxes, fees, yada, yada, yada. So, and when I used to rent that place, I did rent it for a while. You had to pay the what Sheena was talking about, you pay the fee, and then you tell them how much money you made and you pay a percentage of that. But that's not touching the fact that the Rehoboth by the Sea is gathering up just a lot of money because they happen to own, they're the principal owner of the property. And the only reason they can do that is because they use our water, our sewers, our roads, our beaches. I mean, their leases wouldn't be worth anything. So I don't know what the legality of that is. That's my point.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Bill,
I know
Bill, can
sewer
ask
and
a
water
question?
goes through the county.
Yeah, I understand. I was just using that as examples.
Yeah.
Bill, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Bill, you indicated the software was purchased, yielded some 700 rental properties.
No, I didn't make, somebody else on here made that comment. All I said was that we went before the commissioners, asked for $12,000 for this program that we got involved in, where they search the internet, look for people that are renting here. They send us that list. We compare it to what rental license
Okay.
that are out there. We do a comparison, and if they're not on there, we send them a notice basically saying, hey, you know, if you're renting your place in the town of Dewey Beach, you're supposed to pay these fees.
Yeah. I guess I heard someone say there are 700 rental agreements in town,
Give or take.
give or take about that many. Bill, I was just wondering how comprehensive the software search, and, you know, is it something that we should research and research so that we can increase those number of rental fees?
So the mayor has asked Kate, who's overseeing this program, to present this probably at our December commissioners meeting. Again, it'll be up to the mayor when it's actually put on the agenda, but it should be put on before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joe, there were multiple packages. And it went from 12,000 to 60,000. And they were just different software packages. We went with didn't know what we were getting into, so we didn't go to the fourth level, the $60,000 expense. We just went with the 12,000, which identified what we weren't getting. The software, will eventually, if we go to the higher packages, it will do all the invoicing for us and the billing, et cetera. So the collection of it. So, you can automate that whole thing. It's just how much money you want to spend on. I think it's a different, return on investment, I guess, because it's an annual fee. It's not a one-time fee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments with regard to the spreadsheet and fees and so forth?
No, I think the nice thing is it was put together, but it's a bunch of information that doesn't give us information. Like you say, what do we actually gain from this? What do we get out of this compared to the other towns? Are we making $10 and the other town's only making $15 and it doesn't make sense? But it is a nice set of numbers. I think like John said, I'm a gigantic proponent of going for, we've got to do something that's a real positive revenue stream for the town. Sometimes the words aren't very nice when it comes to word tax or fee or assessment. But in order to run a town, and our town is 40 years old, 1981, or 41 years old now, we got to come up with some positive ways to get some real money here. Something as simple as a flat rate, a tax, a fee for property. You just do a simple math, $500 per piece of property, 1,400 property, or $700,000. That's a chunk of change that the town can run on, and we don't have to worry about how much do we spend for a copy, how much do we charge for a FOIA, how much do we transmit on a fax, and things like that. That's just one little thing right there. I don't want to do things like towel taxes, because now you have a reason people come here that they don't go to New Jersey for. I don't want to tax everybody to death who's a visitor with an accommodations tax, whether it's an Airbnb or a hotel, because those are starting to add up now, courtesy of the state. We have to find a happy medium for those. And would we actually get the money that you gather from that? Like I say, that's what I'm looking forward on this committee, is to come up with things, whether they're happy and they make you feel good, or you're going to have to watch your back that someone's going to come at you with a stabbing, because how dare you take money out of my wallet?
No one mentioned the beach tags yet. That's always another one that comes up every year.
I actually, in my first meeting, which was just my only other meeting with the committee, I have family in Spring Lake, New Jersey, and I mentioned the beach tax, only to learn that under Dewey Beach Code, beach taxes are actually prohibited. Just like I've just learned that you can't tax food and alcohol in Delaware. That's a new one for me. But yeah, I sent that up the flagpole at the last meeting, and without knowing that it's currently prohibited in Dewey Beach.
Yeah,
Live and learn.
you know, the sales tax thing, you know, Delaware prides itself on not taxing transactions. However, they do some cars and boats.
Okay,
And somebody had mentioned the accommodations tax. I believe that we're currently at 2% and that's going up to 3%. Is that correct? And Bill, if you know that is that for next year?
So the hotel tax, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheena, we're at 1.5 and we're going to 2, or we're at 2 and going to 2.5, but that's for the hotel tax. That had to come through the charter. And it can go up 0.5 every year until we hit 3.
We're
Right.
currently at 2, and in the spring, if the commissioners say 2, we'll be going up to 2.5. But that is up to the commissioners. The accommodations tax, which is on the residential rentals, that if Paul owns a house that he rents out, he is paying in 3% on those, what he gets.
correct.
But you also have to remember that the hotels in town are also paying the state tax of, I believe it's 8% that gets distributed throughout the state, whether it's just Dewey Beach's hotel, Wilmington gets part of that somewhere. So we're also attacking the 2% we have, soon to be 2.5, along with, I believe it's 8. And that's just a number I'm pulling out that I think I remember, but some, anywhere between 6
It
and 8.
is. It's 6, 1, and 1. 6%. That goes to the state. 1% goes towards the tourism, and 1% to the beach replenishment.
Okay.
So the hotel folks don't think it's fair that they get charged 8 plus 2.5 to rent a room, but if you rent a house, it's only 3. So that's where we try to get you. We should have things, whatever we do, we try to make it even for all. And that, these are all good discussions that, we can have them again, but we need to have a plan for how do we want to get them implemented if we get everybody. I think it'd be tough to say, hey, everybody's going to pay an extra 8% if you rent your house out. That's going to go over about as well as that $20,000 property tax. So but these are all great revenue streams, man. But it's going to be tough cases to make. Just so you know, Delaware is only one of 2 states that does not charge when you rent your house that 8%. It's us in Alaska. So everybody else charges, and it's been bannered around and around, and we'll see what the next up at Leg Hall, let's see what they pass coming in January, but that could be something. And if they do pass that to come through, we'll still keep our 3% that we charge, but we're not going to get anything more than that. The state would keep the rest. Bethany's at 6. Rehoboth Bethany's at 7, right, Bill? Rehoboth is at 6. Everybody gets to keep what they have, but if we wait till after they pass it, they were like, well, sorry, you didn't have it in place before we passed the law. You can't make it retro.
So what's required to increase that? Is that also a referendum, or?
That's a referendum.
That's a referendum. Okay. Anything else? Any other comments?
Yeah, great discussion here, guys
Yeah.
and girls.
Next topic was the priorities for the committee. One of the things I've talked to Bill and Bill about were understanding the other committees that the town has and what financial requirements may exist to meet those objectives and priorities that they're putting together. And this is a work in progress. The infrastructure committee, I think, is still gathering information. I think that they are working on putting their list together. That was distributed and made available. To my knowledge, as we speak, that is the only one that really is dollarized anything that's significant. I think maybe the other committees, it's very small amounts, relatively small amounts, 30,000 or below. But that's a work in progress that I'm still taking on, trying to gather more information so that I can share it with this committee. Then we can, look at that, see if the recommendations needed. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I would say basically it's more to come on getting the priorities for the other committees. All right. Number 7, potential topics for the next meeting. We have some follow-up items. I'll start there with Sheena and crew working on gathering the information on 3 Delaware, New Jersey towns, Cape May, Stone Harbor, and Avalon. And Sheena had as another follow-up in terms of matching your spreadsheet, adding a column or perhaps even under the definition showing the dollar amount that Dewey collects for each of these. So if it was talking about, I'm looking at my one, the late fee fine for business, we have a fine for $500. What does that amount to in terms of revenue per year? So that it gives us an idea of what each of these revenue sources contributes to the annual budget. And the third thing I would add is, again, if I'm in a position to share or have the answers to priorities for the other committee, I will add that as well. Any other topics for next meeting?
I would say, I don't want to supersede anybody and things, but I went up and looked at because Dan, I had asked you about the profit and loss and the budget itself and was able to get that off the website. Thank you very much. There's a lot of gaps in there. Last year, COVID did a lot of stuff. We weren't allowed to do things in person. We did things in Zoom. We didn't have a meeting for a year. If we could get maybe the roughest of outlines of this so we can see where holes are, where gaps are, where things are positive, where things are negative, and just at least start to have a framework, because April 1st is going to come a whole lot sooner than we realize.
Yeah, due to personnel changes that have and are happening, I kind of got a little delayed in my budget prep. I was hoping to work on it this month and it just didn't happen. So
No, for the first meeting that we're having, I think Dan's doing a great job. Everybody's contributing. It's a great discussion. That was probably nothing that we really could have hit, but that's for the next meeting.
yeah, that's why I'm hoping, it's not going to be as fleshed out as I had hoped, but I will have a general idea on everything by the next meeting. A beginning glance. By December, I would have it fleshed out.
Okay, thank you.
It's Sheena. Lynn Winkler, there was an article in the paper, Wilmington paper, comparing some of the different towns and what they did last year and what they did this year. I think it was as far as revenues. Did you see that? It was kind of interesting.
I have to say I avoid all news unless my teenagers tell me I need to know it, but I will look into that and see what I can find.
Yeah,
Hey, Lynn, if you have that, could you send that to the group?
I'll have to go back and look at it. I'll find it. I just remember I read it. I should have noted it. I didn't. I let it roll right on by, but it was a comparison. I believe it was revenues this year and last year. It was like, what did COVID do to the beaches? One of those kind of things.
Now, I do know that one of the newspapers always asks what our parking revenues and number of tickets and number of permits. She compares all the beach towns. I know that was just given recently, so I don't know if that's the story you're talking about, but I will look into it.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
Anything else, guys?
I guess I'm still curious. We talked about residential renting. That's something that maybe for a bunch of you is something I'm more familiar with because we rent our house on Dickinson for the prime 10 weeks of the summer. So I was kind of just ballparking what is generated for the town of Dewey Beach just from our house. And it comes, I'm just, curious. I realize you can't tax food or alcohol in Delaware, but I'm interested in finding out how much revenue for the town of Dewey Beach is generated by the Starboard, that pretty much operates year round and prints money. I just wanted to find out what that ballpark would be, because again, I know we don't want to cause these businesses to go out and then we lose tourism, but at the same time, somehow before we really hit people who own houses in Dewey Beach any harder, I think we should really look at, our biggest revenue businesses in the town, especially given
ballpark figure is the reason the restaurants and the bars here are people come here and they'll spend the weekend at your house. They'll spend the week at your house and spend that money, which you make, in order to make money at their establishment. And then they'll go to a restaurant in Rehoboth, or they'll take the Jolly Trolley up there, or they'll go down to the Indian River Inlet. It's an intangible that you can't really say the Starboard makes this much money, therefore they should pay this much, because they're actually helping you out. They're helping out the transportation. They're helping out the Ubers. They're helping out the vans. So you really can't. I mean, when I was commissioner back goo gobs of years ago, it was always the bars don't pay their fair share. The bars don't do this. The bars do a really good job because they generate what we have here. We have people selling, buying and renting their homes. They have people who are doing it in prime time, like you say, for 10 weeks. We have people that are hosting weddings here. Paul's done weddings down at the gazebo and on the beach as the.
Zeke. That's $100 fee to have a wedding on the beach.
But you know what? Those people all came here and rented a house for $6,000 on the 4th of July weekend. And they spent money in the restaurant, and they had a bachelorette party, and they rented a car to drive all over the place. So those are intangibles that you can't say the bar made this much when a lot of other people made this much. I'm not saying the Starboard made the exact same amount of money as the Uber driver.
I guess what we could do, I mean, it's probably a safe assumption. Could we say that 100% of the parking revenue comes from people that come in day trip people, right? If you fed a meter, I probably didn't get a meter to go to John's house.
Yeah.
Right.
John probably has you probably buy a parking pass for the house and you give it to whoever rents that week, right?
Actually, we don't. Our driveway fits 4 cars. And the nice thing about Dewey Beach is they park and walk. So you're not going to get any parking fees from our renters.
Right.
Right. You get a lot of parking fees from the people that work at the Starboard, because on New Orleans Street, the street fills up with the people's cars that work at the Starboard and at Woody's and at the Ale House and everything else. Because I sit on my porch and watch them all the time.
But again, the first thing I mentioned today was we're looking for significant revenue. Parking fees, I don't really believe are what we would call significant revenue. To be fair,
that's about $600,000 a year, right, Bill?
Our total parking revenue was over $1 million.
Was it over $1 million? That's significant. That's a third of our budget.
Okay.
That includes seasonal passes, right?
Right.
The parking total was $1.4 million. That is seasonal, which is $390,000, and the rest is daily and meters.
And you got to keep in mind, we're making that off of parking, but a town like Rehoboth made over $1 million they're over by $1 million this year, and they have a property tax to run their town, which, we're lucky that we do have the folks that come in and pay for the parking. And we do have transfer tax that usually is over $700,000. But again, if the economy continues where it is, we may not get that next year. So as some of the committee members have said, we need to find a revenue source that we can depend on to make budget every year. And right now that's, I've only been here 18 months, but that's tough. When I sit down with Sheena, we're looking at, all right, how much can we spend next year? How much can I provide for my town employees to keep them here so they can have a decent salary and to provide garbage on the streets and pick up the garbage that's on the street, things like that. It's really tough not having a steady amount of income coming in. You got to kind of guess based on the last 5 years, an average, and then probably go a little below it given your current economy.
Mhm.
Great synopsis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Discussion?
Yeah, because really the only thing I can think of raising for on a business, and we may, here's a thought, is their occupancies is a little bit higher now. So their business licenses could be adjusted up to reflect the outdoor dining that's now been made permanent for them.
We really don't make a lot of money off the business license, though. And Sheena or Kate can correct me on that, but I'm not compared to parking and transfer tax, where
Oh,
majority of our
absolutely.
funds come in.
No, the budget for business licenses, that's rental and commercial business licenses, is less than 300,000 a year.
Okay. So we got 300,000 and 1.4 for parking. So 1.7, that's 65% of our budget, 60% of our budget.
I think our budget's at 3.4 or 3.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
Sheena,
half.
would it be possible for members of our committee to receive the 2022 budget so that, I mean, a lot of things are new to me regarding this, and it'd be most informative. I mean, for example, I didn't know that parking is a third of our budgeted revenue. So
It's posted on the website.
okay.
I'm trying to,
You go to every commissioner meeting, you get an update of, you can look at through September. That gets
Okay.
reviewed at every monthly meeting.
Okay,
So if you
great.
go to that meeting date and then pull up the documents, that's always in there towards the, that's always one of the last agenda items.
Fabulous.
if you go on the website, under the finance department, there's financial reports and archives. It has our fund balance policy. It has archives back to long, long ago.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Sheena?
Yes, sir.
On that budget posted on the website, is there a line item for investment income?
Yes, sir. But we do not budget for it because we can't predict what the stock market's going to do. It's there, but we don't budget for it.
Sheena, how much is currently at Brown Advisory? Do you know?
See,
6 million.
you can't account for all of it because the majority of it is beach tax, and that does not go into the general fund. We cannot touch it for the general fund. It is only used for the beach cleaning and then the replenishment. I
Okay.
think there's about 1.5 that's there, or million to $1.5 million that's there for the general fund.
Do we know what the Brown Advisory management fee is?
Not off the top of my head because I did not attend the last investment meeting.
Okay.
Let me pull up, that's on the website as well. Let me pull up meetings.
Anything else, guys?
Not Zeke.
Kate, do you want to open up for public comment, or if there's anyone out there?
No one's in the waiting room for public comment.
Okay. All right. Any other business? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay.
Dan, did we settle on a date for the next meeting?
I think we're supposed to be doing that through email. I think, I'm not sure we're supposed to be doing that through, I think when I read some of the I don't know, the requirements of the bylaws, whatever it is, I'm not sure we're supposed to do it during this process, to tell you the truth.
Okay, fine.
So I'll definitely do it through email. Okay, so all in favor of adjournment?
Close the meeting.
Aye.
I.
Aye.
All right.
All right, well, thank you all. Appreciate everybody. Great
Thanks,
conversation.
everybody.
Thank
Great
you.
first
Very
meeting.
much. Have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
everybody. Dan, thank you for taking on the chair. Really appreciate it.
Yep.